Earlier this year, we named the Creators Award winners, whether they are reimagining their customer experience or forging a path into the metaverse or investing in employees' mental health. These 6 leaders represent the height of innovation and creativity in the industry, and they're ready to share their key success with you right here during this panel discussion, which is sponsored by Keurig Dr. Pepper. Joining us briefly on stage is Luke Emery, Chief Customer Officer for Tractor Beverage. Welcome, Luke. Have a seat.
Thank you.
So, the Creators Awards are all about innovation and adapting to change and harnessing new opportunities despite these challenging times. How does Keurig Dr. Pepper, as a company, aligned with Create?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I just want to thank the event sponsors and Create for having us. We're very honored to be here. Congratulations to the honorees, both today and yesterday. So thank you for having us.
Well, thank you.
Really to address the question, you think about how Keurig, Green Mountain, and Dr. Pepper came together a few years ago, really as the platform to be the modern beverage company for the future within food service. And really the thought there was really to find ways to engage consumers, bring solutions to operators here in the room and across the country. One of the best ways, most recent ways that we did that was through a partnership with Tractor Beverage Company. And Tractor Beverage Company is a farmer-founded company really intended to bring better for you beverages to the masses through our food service partners. And you think about within the retail space, the amount of choices you go into your local Whole Foods, your local grocer, convenience store, and then you go into food service, you don't have that same level of choice. A fun fact that I read recently was 50% of growth in retail came from brands that didn't exist 5 years ago. That same level of choice is what we're saying we would love to bring to the industry. And we're a humble group. With that said, we're very proud to be named number 216 in fastest growing companies from Inc. 5000 most recently. So very excited about the momentum within the industry.
Well, I was excited to taste the beverages yesterday, so. And given the current environment in food service, how have you enabled the industry?
When we think about how we can best partner, we really think about the value proposition across all stakeholders within our pouring partners. So first and foremost, culinary, you have to have a great tasting product. We're excited to be able to do that as well. We also start to think about the consumer. Consumers today are discerning. They're looking for ingredients that they could pronounce, ingredients that are transparent, functional, purpose, and that's something that Tractor brings to the table from a culinary perspective. Next is from an operations standpoint, it has to be easy with all the labor constraints that the industry is facing. You have to have solutions that are turnkey, and we were excited to be able to bring that as well. The next is really from a finance standpoint, with margin compression being what it is. Really, we're excited to be able to bring an opportunity to sell more beverages, and that's at the end of the day what we're trying to do is sell more beverages. When you do that, everybody wins. We look at it as an and, not an or. So it's not legacy soda and no other options. It's, hey, we live nicely next to Big Soda, and really all about the consumer, bringing solutions to the consumer. And last but not least is marketing. We've got a great story to tell with our pouring partners to really extend the ethos of the kitchen through the beverage station, not necessarily stopping at the beverage station. So again, thank you so much for having us. It's been an honor to be here. So thank you so much. We also have super cool Tractor hats in the back for everybody in the room. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I think I missed the cue because I picked up a Tractor hat yesterday and I should have been wearing it. So that's great. Thank you. Thanks again for sponsoring and your continued support of the Creators Award. We hope everybody enjoys the panel discussion. And of course, here to kick off the discussion is Sam Okus, Editor-in-Chief of Nation's Restaurant News. Great.
you, Susan. Thank you to Keurig Dr. Pepper for your support. All right, let's get this panel on the stage. Our first recipient of the creator in the brand creator with over 200 units category is Wendy's. And Wendy's is being recognized for its innovative approach to the customer experience as well as its forward-thinking strategies, which includes moves into the metaverse. Let's welcome the Vice President of National Marketing for Wendy's, Lindsay Radkowski. So Lindsay, before we introduce the rest of our panelists, why metaverse? Why is Wendy's getting into the metaverse?
Oh, Sam, this is a long story,
Okay.
But for Wendy's, it was just the next natural progression in ways that we've already been connecting with our customers. So you guys have probably seen, Wendy's Twitter, us on social media. We got into gaming with Twitch. And our customer, our fans were moving that way, which is what led us to Metaverse. It wasn't just because it was the shiny, bright object in the room, but we can talk about it more later.
Yeah, we'll unpack that a little bit. Thank you, Lindsay. All right, next up onto the stage, our next honoree in the creators is for our brand creator with under 200 locations, and that is Capriotti's. And we are recognizing Capriotti's for their tech-forward revamp and their renewed growth of fast casual wing zone, which they acquired in late 2020. Please welcome to the stage CEO Ashley Morris. All right, so Ashley, I know a big part of your guys' development over the last couple of years is a focus on off-premises innovation in particular. Can you just briefly tell us a little bit about what that's looked like for Capriotti's and now Wing Zone?
Sure. So, through discovery of off-premise, what we found is that, to stay really relevant, you need to be omni-channel. You need to be everywhere. And so the brand has to be able to be sort of used by the customer's desire, right? It's not okay anymore to just have your way of doing things. It's got to be the customer's way of doing things. And so with that, we did a lot of investment and a lot of thinking around how does the customer use fast food, fast casual, and quick service. And then, we just drove very hard into becoming this omni-channel brand that sort of allowed you to be able to use it any way, shape, and form.
Excellent. Great. Well, thank you so much. We'll hear a little bit more about that shortly. Our next creators winner represents the independent restaurant creator, and that is Ascend Hospitality, which is being recognized for its innovative efforts to support and empower employees and for its mentorship and development opportunities. Joining us for the discussion today is Jeffrey Frederick, the co-founder and partner of Ascend Hospitality. Jeffrey, I feel like we should have had you on our culture panel yesterday because I think culture is a big one for you guys. Tell me a little bit about the culture at Ascend.
Oh my goodness, amazing group of individuals. We have about 100 employees in our restaurant in Bellevue, Washington. It's a very intense group. I like to describe it as a small, the leadership team's a small but mighty team. There's about 11 of us that lead this organization. And we believe right now in this very difficult market to find talent is we've got to grow it from within. So I think we are an enabling culture, one that does not believe in command control, but really bringing the best out of individuals. And we have a lot of, I think, unique things that we do in our operation that brings the best out of people and creates the best unit, the best team.
Very exciting. Thank you so much. Next up is our leadership creator honoree, and that is Frank Bonanno of Bonanno Concepts right here in Denver. Frank and his team are recognized for their dedication to employees, which includes the hiring of a corporate therapist to support workers' mental health, as well as a tip equity program to ensure fair pay. Please welcome Frank Bonanno. Frank, tell me, what does innovation look like when it comes to your team? How do you innovate around what you're providing for your team?
I think what we're trying to provide is safe, fun, healthy work environment. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges we're all facing is retention and making sure that the people that are working for us are putting our message out there and giving hospitality to our guests. We're predominantly a full service restaurant group, and those are one of the most important things we need is the retention of employees to make the experience something that's special.
That's awesome. Great. Thank you so much, Frank. Our next panelist is for our marketing creator, and that is Dine Brands Global, recognized for achievement at both of its brands which includes viral marketing moments at Applebee's, as well as the rollout of a new loyalty and customer rewards platform at IHOP. Please welcome CEO John Payton and Chief Marketing Officer for IHOP, Kieran Donahue. All right, so I think everybody in the world at this point knows about the fancy Applebee's connection. And if you could sing it now, John, that would be really good.
It's not going to happen.
Not going to happen. What does marketing innovation look like? How do you guys approach it at IHOP and Applebee's? Where do you even begin?
Sure. Well, honestly, it starts in a simple place, and that's the guest. We are, at IHOP, our purpose is all about serving joy to more people. And so for us, we're trying to find ways to meet our guests where they are, provide them with a great experience, great food, and innovation can come from just something as simple as that. So that's where PanCoins also came about. We believed that our pancakes were so valuable that we created a digital pancake as our currency for our loyalty program, the International Bank of Pancakes.
Love it.
So.
That's very cool. Great. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about that soon. Finally, last but not least, our next award recipient is for the Operations Creator category. And that honoree this year is Smoky Bones, which is being recognized for its innovations around off-premises dining, including its first drive-through, new digital ordering technology, and more purposeful design to improve the customer experience. Joining us for this award is James O'Reilly, the CEO of Smoky Bones. All right, James, so drive-through and full service are not entirely, we don't see that very often, let's say. Why did you think it could be done?
Yeah, Sam, well, for Smoky Bones, off-premise is a growing, big, important part of our business. And out of that strategy, we believe that drive-through makes the off-premise experience faster and more convenient for our off-premise guests. So we built one. It's in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and we're really excited about it.
Awesome. Well, while I walk to the other side of the stage, let's give them a round of applause for the creators winners. This panel is like a mile long. This is a mega panel. And if somebody could just make sure I don't fall to my death over here, that'd be great. Thank you. Okay, so let's go back to the metaverse, Lindsay. Let's talk about that at Wendy's. Where do you even begin investing in the metaverse? Because Wendy's has really jumped in like whole hog. I mean, you guys have really done an incredible amount of investing in metaverse. Where did you begin on that?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Sam, and just want to take a minute to thank you for, and NRN, for the award and the recognition. It means a lot. Really happy to be here. For us, the decision to enter the metaverse and be in it consistently, as we have since April, really comes back to our brand positioning. Everything we do at Wendy's is guided by our brand positioning, which is to have our customers' backs where others have let them down. That's why Dave Thomas started the brand, and the culture panel yesterday talked a lot about values guide behavior and decision making, and for us that's true. That probably feels really weird to connect to the metaverse, but it's because with that, to have your customers back, to really form a relationship with them, you have to know them. And for us, that comes down to knowing what we call our brand fans. And our brand fans are in places like March Madness, college football. We've done a lot with Big Noon Kickoff. I mentioned earlier gaming and Twitch and social media. And so as our fans just naturally started migrating to the metaverse and we saw this interest in the virtual reality, augmented reality world, we started having conversations like, what would that look like? You know, but very intentionally, what would our purpose be? Who would we want to partner with? And we like to go pretty narrow and deep with partners that have the same beliefs and values as we do and are willing to take risk. We like to do things just a little bit differently at Wendy's and have really found that when we find the right partner, they bring more to the table than we ever expected. Hopefully we enhance their experience that they were planning, and it really makes the investment side of the discussion almost an afterthought, because what comes first is building something really authentic and unique that we know will resonate and connect with customers.
So the metaverse, I've been having a lot of conversations with folks about the metaverse. Is it worth it? Is it going to be around for a while? Is it the future? A lot of restaurants not sure if they should get in, but again, you guys went all the way. How far out ahead of of trends do you even want to be? Is there such thing as being too far ahead of the curve for the metaverse?
Yeah, they're all calculated risk. And for us, the big internal discussion going in was we're not going to do it just to check a box and, no offense, get a headline. We're going to do it to engage with our customers over a long period of time. So it was a big bet, and it was it's before people can really answer all those questions about the future of what's there. The easy thing to do would have been to, sponsor something for an hour in the metaverse and have people put on their Oculus headsets and go into Horizon World. But instead, we created our own world. People have done NFTs, so just like a quick NFT, and people can buy it. You can get a little bit of revenue from that. But we don't go in to sell to people. We go in to create, wherever we go as a brand, to create relationships. And because of that, it wasn't a one and done or flash in the pan strategy, which means we made a bet, and we're still making that bet. But we're on our 4th world within Wendyverse right now. And it's a very immersive experience. We have been able to integrate digital or mobile offers into that experience, so tie it back to the real world, and seeing some conversion to digital ordering, but that's not the primary focus. The primary focus is create a relationship and engagement with our customers, our fans. We've seen 11.5 minutes is our average engagement time in Wendyverse. And in today's world for content, that's an eternity. So that's part of why we go in and really, we're selective about what we do and really make it matter.
That's awesome. That's very cool. Thank you. Ashley, let's talk about Capriati's innovation around technology. I know I've talked to David on your team about this too, but you guys, when the pandemic hit, I think you guys really saw a lot of opportunity on how you could really capitalize around the off-premises like we just spoke about. But tell me about that. And over the last couple of years, how have you ramped that up? What's the innovation look like specifically in off-premises? What are some of the strategies you've used?
Sure. So look, I think it goes back, Lindsay, you said it great. You look at where your customer is and where your customer is going to really drive your decision, right? And so I think, when I look back, one of the best lessons that I didn't realize I learned as a kid was from Levi Strauss. And it's built a program inside of me that when I became an entrepreneur, I said, the very first thing I said to my partner was, we are never going to be the person who fails to innovate and accidentally go out of business, right? Levi Strauss, you probably all know the story, 90+% market share, and then all of a sudden someone invents these things called low-rise jeans. And they go, nah, it's never gonna work, it's stupid, and the customer's not gonna use it, and then moments later they were out of business, right? So, becoming a business owner, I had all these, fears, both warranted and unwarranted, I think, and that was one of them that sort of resonated with me. And so in becoming, the lead role at a company, I said, no matter what we're gonna do, we're always gonna keep our eye open to where the landscape is going. Whether we like it, whether we don't like it, whether we approve of it, whether we don't approve of it, the fact of the matter is customers will go in a direction whether you like it or not. And so, for us, we come back to this all the time and say, we've got this great brand, we've got this great product, but where is the world going? Where is the consumer going? And so, to your question about off-premise, again, when the delivery aggregators sort of made their way onto the scene, we had an internal discussion very quickly, and I honestly was the first one to be like, all right, everyone, let's just be patient and see what happens. And to the credit of my team, they all looked at me and said, no, remember what you said, we go where the customer is going, let's get there and let's optimize very quickly. And so we embraced that technology very quickly. It served us very well. And so again, in thinking about where the customer is going, you've got to embrace it, you've got to try it, you've got to test it, and you've got to know, again, you've got to make calculated bets, right? And so you've got to do things that whether you like it or not, the writing's on the wall that this is where it's going, and if not, you're going to wind up playing catch up. And what we never wanted to do was be in a position necessarily to be playing catch up with our brands. So today, what we're looking at, sort of the landscape in front of us, yeah, we're omni-channel now. You can, use delivery aggregators. You can use our internal channels. You can come in and you can order off your phone. You can order off kiosks. Like, we have all the technology that sort of supports the four walls of the restaurant. Now we're sort of looking at where is this world going? And thanks to the cell phone and thanks to, the fact that you're sort of on demand as a consumer, right? Like, this is a do-it-yourself consumer. They're going to, continue to, become this newer generation of people are going to continue to become sort of the people who spend the most amount of money, and they want it right now, right? They don't necessarily need as much service as we historically have seen out of a consumer. And so, with that, you then think about things like robotics, and you think about automation, and you say, okay, well, how do we just get the product into the hands of the consumer the way they want it, which is faster, which is, in a way that just works for them. And so that's what we constantly think about day in and day out, and try to be respectful of when in our thinking.
Yeah.
I will say one other piece of that, though, is when you foster that culture inside of your organization, it's super exciting for a lot of people. And whether or not you actually execute on these things, like, we've had discussions about the metaverse too inside, and a lot of people get a smile on their face. They've all gone out and seen Ready Player One, and they sort of understand what that looks like, and it's like, yes, we want to be there one day, right? And so just the fact that you're okay with it and you're talking about it internally, I do really think helps sort of, create more longevity in your employee and your support staff, because, it's exciting. That's fun.
Great. Jeffrey, you were telling us a little bit about the investments in culture at Ascend. How do you then, how does that help you innovate across the brands in the portfolio? How do you use your team to innovate at the multiple brands you guys have?
Great question. And, we're still a relatively young company. We started in 2018, and then when the pandemic hit, kind of took us out of the game for a bit, so we're still building. But, in my prior life, it all begins and ends with the staff, and have they reached a point of dedication and commitment and belief in what our purpose is. And when we get those individuals, we really try to create a landscape of opportunity for them. So we kind of look at it as, creating disciples, and then we got the loyalty, and they believe in what we're all about, and they are expressing that in all their actions, that role model behavior. We look at them as the opportunity now to create crusaders, those that we can then move on to our other brands, grow our other brands, bring that seed of cultural light and purpose into new businesses or even existing businesses that we've got to bring forward. So they kind of go from disciple to crusader, and then they get out into the market or into our businesses, and they are that new seed of hope and that new seed of growth. So it's more or less cross-pollination. It's making sure that we take those that take us seriously and what we do seriously, and then bring that to our other businesses.
Frank, you obviously with your investments in your people as well, mental health being so key to what you are doing at Bonanno Concepts. Tell me about why mental health became so important to you guys, and why was having an in-house therapist the move that you guys took?
I think, we were coming out of the pandemic. We're a small group. I think, we were a group that in one day basically let go of 90% of our staff. I mean, as does a lot of independent restaurants, with no notion of when they would be coming back. So when we were hiring people back to reopen in June, when Denver was able to reopen, we looked at who do we want to work with, and what are the biggest concerns. And as we started to staff, and we went away from a tipping model and started to go more to a team model, you put out Survey Monkeys. What's the most important thing? Me being the dumb person thought, oh, it's money, right? Money ended up being like 3 or 4 on almost every survey we went about asking the staff that we currently had. Mental health was like number 1. People want a safe, fun work environment. If they have a fun, safe work environment, your guests will have a fun, safe work environment. So we knew we needed to do something, and it wasn't just giving health insurance, right? Like, I don't know if we all do health insurance, but if you're providing health insurance for your employees, at least they're going out to get care. But we found that a lot of health insurance didn't cover mental wellness or therapists, and so that was like the first person we added to our leadership team, was someone that would be able to see our employees or the people we work with, our team members, and have a safe place to go talk about this. Things we didn't know about when we were putting this in place was, we're a small company, we have to rent a separate office in a separate building. There's lots of privacy. There's extra insurance that goes along with that. And by the way, you're not allowed to know of any of the issues that the therapist has talked about. So you're not even able to solve those problems. And she, being our therapist, is not allowed to really help us in what the problems are. They're literally just there for the employees. And that gives a safe space for your employees to start believing and trusting in you, because they have someone they can go believe and trust in. And to us, that was the most important thing. If we're gonna create a culture, we want a culture that's a safe, fun work environment for everyone to come to work in. And it will exude to the guests. I truly believe that, and help us to be a better group.
Frank, that's amazing. May I ask a question? So did you find that there was a lot of demand? Were your team members in line to see the therapist, or did you have to sort of get the message out and make them feel comfortable that this was something they could do?
So it was obviously in our hiring, as we were hiring people, this was the one thing everyone was like, okay, great, you guys cover 75% of health insurance, great. The one thing that we did when we would go for the interview process, and this is to line cook to server, this is something we have available. We have in-house therapists that you can go speak to, that's completely anonymous, will never know anything you talk about, and this is what we're providing. It turned the table for us in hiring. We were able to staff up to almost 450 people in several weeks in our restaurants. We were also paying a very high competitive wage. I believe in Denver we're one of the higher paying people because of our non-tipping system. That wasn't it, though. It was this safety net that creates a culture of, this is who we are, we care, we want you to succeed, we want you to be happy. That was really it. So it was really just in the interview process as that comes along. And I'm old, so I don't, offer letters and everything. We do offer letters to even a dishwasher.
We discovered backstage we're the same age, and I don't think I'm old.
I feel old when I'm sitting next to a 23-year-old cook standing on the line cooking. But we found that when we put this even in an offer letter, whether it's bilingual or that, and they're reading their offer letter as just an entry-level dishwasher or busser, and seeing that they have these things available to them from us, that's what helped them actually sign a letter, and making it seem like it was more of just the job. I think we need to change the industry into it being a real career and a real hospitality industry, which over the past couple of years of the pandemic, I think was lost. I think people gave up on us, and I think that's the battle we're all facing right now, is to get that bartender to want to be a manager and want to grow in an industry that, quite honestly, we did shit for in independent restaurants that weren't fast food takeout, right? That weren't in that segment. We didn't have a lot to offer, quite honestly, and a lot of unknowns.
It's terrific, because we all get asked the question all the time, how do you retain and attract employees at a time when there's a million fewer restaurant workers? It's the first time I've heard that solution, and I think it is the most compelling solution I've heard. A lot more compelling than giving someone a free Netflix account.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool, Frank. Kieran and John, let's talk about one of the trends that we've had here on the panel already is, innovation is responding to consumers and what consumers want. You guys, obviously, in marketing for IHOP and Applebee's, you have the challenge of responding to the national consumer and responding to these trends that pop up. So Fancy Like is such a great example of capturing some of that lightning in a bottle. Kieran, for you, I'm sure as a marketer, you must think about this all the time. How do you do that? So how do you do that? How do you innovate with marketing at a national brand such as IHOP?
Sure. Well, so a couple of things. I think, honestly, it starts with understanding who you are as a brand, but also who your guest is. And one of the first things that we did last year was invest in some of the most comprehensive research we've ever done as a brand, because we knew so many things had changed because of the pandemic. Our guests had changed, and we needed to get to know them again. And so if we were going to use omni-channel and we were going to meet them where they are in all their different channels, we certainly needed to have a message that resonated with them. And so what we learned is a couple of things. Number one, that we needed to talk a bit more about the quality of food that we actually have. We actually take for granted that we make our batter fresh every day to a specific recipe and make our food on the griddle every day. And if you've ever stood behind a griddle, you know how hard that is. But we need to talk about it. We need to talk about fresh ingredients. We need to talk about, they were looking for other things besides, we're really good at indulgent things. And we like to call it 2 sides of craving. They want to know that there's some other options, some healthier options. So we're working on also featuring things we already do, like gluten-friendly pancakes, but also, introducing other products to our line. Value is also a really important component, and value in a couple of ways. Yes, value for the money, and we tend to have abundant portions, but value me as a guest. Value the fact that I'm making a choice to be, to choose to dine with you, and that started us along the path of, well, we have an opportunity to create a loyalty program. And obviously, I have spent 20 plus years in loyalty from the hotel side of things, and was fortunate that we had a great team member, Nathan Casey, on our team who lives and breathes loyalty and helped us develop this program. And we tapped into what was kind of current with the cryptocurrency, and granted, those things are up and down, but our pancakes are always consistent, and we created a digital pancake called a PanCoin. And the point there was that we wanted to create value for our guests, but we also wanted to get to know them better, and because they sign up for our loyalty program, which is the International Bank of Pancakes, we get to know a little bit more about them. They tell us things. They tell us when they dine, what they like to eat. And so it's helping us meet our guests where they are simply by having this program. And so that was, really getting to know your guests, doing the research, investing in that research is really important so that we can stay on top of where our guest is. So that's kind of where we started.
John, I feel like so much of the last, I feel like it's been a year now since the Fancy Like became such a phenomenon. How has Applebee's leaned into that? How do you lean into that to really get the most out of a campaign like that?
So, the Fancy Like, Walker Hayes wrote the song, was a gift from the heavens, right? And
Yeah.
so but it's a great lesson in breakthrough marketing and what makes marketing work, right? So, had our ad agency written that song, it probably would have sounded like a song that an ad agency wrote, right? And had our ad agency gone out and hired some TikTok kids to do the dance, it wouldn't have seemed authentic. And so, real breakthrough marketing, whether it's a gift from a fan like Walker Hayes, or it's just really good advertising and marketing, really has to feel authentic. And in a space like ours, like with Wendy's, with IHOP, with Applebee's, these are large national brands, and they're on television a lot, and it's a very busy space in terms of communicating and getting your message out. And so what really happened here was that it was this authentic moment where Walker literally used to date his wife and take her to Applebee's, right? And that's why it was about date night at Applebee's. And then he did the dance with his daughter. And so our team was everything a marketing team should be, right? They were nimble, they were agile, they jumped on it. Walker was incredibly supportive, and so he did 40 appearances for Applebee's, last year. He's at our conference last year. The Applebee's conference starts today in Beaver Creek, and he's there again. And so one of the things that I think was super clever, and the way we took it from a viral phenomenon to making it a marketing campaign, is the brand went out and filmed actual guests doing the dance. And the commercial that we put on TV using his song, while we had clips of him, everyone you saw on that commercial was our guests sending us their videos of them doing the dance. And that's how you extend something and make it really, truly authentic.
Absolutely. James, let's talk about the Smoky Bones drive-through bit. I think that, full service, you don't see a lot of full service brands with drive-throughs because it's hard, and it doesn't always make sense for when you have so much time you have to cook your food in full service. How did you solve for this? What does the Smoky Bones drive-through look like? How did you figure out how to make it work?
Well, when you're adding a business onto an existing business, you have to plan for it in a way that you provide your customers of your new business every bit the experience that they're hoping for without impacting the experience that all your other guests are having. And what we found coming out of the pandemic, and I'm sure everyone did, how important off-premise became to our business. And we started designing for the off-premise guest, designing for the on-premise guest, of course, also. But when we started thinking about what are ways we can really thrill the off-premise guest to make their experience better, more convenient, faster, we just asked ourselves this question, well, what about drive-through? And so people would ask me, well, you guys are doing a drive-through, you're full service, you can't do that. But I would say, when you have boundaries, if you think you have boundaries, you should push them. You should really push them. And so we pushed that boundary a little bit to create a better, what we believe is a better experience for our off-premise guests, and how we made it so that it would not impact the restaurant operation, the kind of core back of the house, is we built a dedicated expediting kitchen for the drive-through guests. So we have a fry station, a beverage station, hot hold, packaging, everything you would need to create the order that comes off of the cooking equipment for the off-premise guest all gets expedited into a little mini dedicated drive-through expediting kitchen. And that way we can take care of the drive-through guest and obviously continue to take great care of the dining guest.
How's it working out so far?
Working out great. We're very excited. We're finding it highly incremental, even more so than I thought it would be. And what we're getting is customers from other drive-throughs trying our drive-through.
So, Lindsay, let's come back to you and talk a little bit more about innovation at Wendy's. Even beyond the metaverse, how do you guys measure the success of your innovation at Wendy's? What goals do you set for something like the Wendyverse or any other innovations you have?
Yeah, so for us, innovation is everything from how we connect with our customers and form relationships with them, whether it be through social or metaverse, to menu items that we launch, advertising campaigns. So we have sort of a balanced scorecard of brand measures. So we have a couple brand health measures that really matter the most to us, because we see that they lead to top of mind awareness, preference of our brand, and then loyalty. So there's a couple of those. There are a couple financial metrics that matter as well. And then we pay really close attention to our crew and our restaurant teams and how they respond to our innovation as well. We like to think about them as just as important, if not more important, as the customer that's paying at the register or through the app, because when they get behind a program, that's what creates the lightning in a bottle aspect for us. We had one this summer. We, for the first time ever, went outside of just chocolate and vanilla Frosty. We launched a strawberry Frosty, so next logical flavor for Neapolitan. I see a couple applause in the front row, was strawberry. And the game-changing element of that launch was our crew. And before we ever paid for a national ad, we saw amazing customer response in the form of customer counts, energy, people talking about it on social. And we know that our restaurant teams in 5,800 restaurants in the US are a huge part of that. So it's one of the filters we use as we think about innovation, even down to how do we name products? Can our crew members pronounce them and explain them easily? We've really kind of pulled forward the importance of crew in our innovation filters.
With the Wendyverse in particular, what are you hoping to accomplish?
I think the biggest thing for the Wendyverse is just around the relationship with customers. So innovation doesn't all have the same purpose. Some things are maybe more about commerce and average ticket, or speed and throughput. The Wendyverse really is about relationship building with our customers. So we've used the phrase for several years now that our goal is to first form a relationship, like first make a friend, then invite them to lunch. Younger generations today, they sniff out corporate America instantly. And whether it's people that are, paid influencers, we always say, we don't slap a logo on things. We get there to be a part of the experience and to enhance the experience and participate just like a human would, not like a brand would. And that's really why our metaverse approach is one of longevity and to be there within the Wendyverse, so that it's not just one and done. So for us, that success would just continue to look like growing, as augmented reality and virtual reality grow. seeing more and more people engage in the metaverse come back, and then maybe eventually having ways to, never take your headset off and have Wendy's come to your front door. That's not out of the question. So those worlds could come together faster than I think we all might think. But that's a little bit about maybe what to expect going forward.
Yeah. So good segue into Ashley talking about, you mentioned automation and robotics and some of the things you guys are looking at. Tell me about how that's part of the next wave of innovation for Capriotti's and Wing Zone, and how do you do robotics automation without it feeling sterile and inauthentic to the guests? How do you keep it hospitable?
Sure. Well, again, I go back to, whether we like it or not, this is going to happen, right? And so I think that, if you sort of look at, the history of where jobs are going, the reality of the situation is, right, 150 years ago, 90+% of jobs were farming jobs. Today, farming jobs represent about 6.5% of jobs. And so if you would ask someone 150 years ago, hey, you come from a long line of farmers, what's your kid going to do? It's very obvious he's going to be a farmer. And so today, that's different. And what I think is super interesting is we went into COVID, and I think completely unintentionally, all the people who sort of, in fast food, you kind of have either passionate restaurant people who want to start their career, or you sort of have a stepping stone of, this is my first job, I'm going to go in and I'm going to, do my best, and then I'm going to go to college, and one day I'm going to be whatever it is you want to be. And COVID sort of backed everybody off and said, here's a 18-month period where you're going to be subsidized to stay home because the world needs you to stay home right now, and you have this time to go learn a skill. And so many people went in and used that time wisely. And, look, there's a zillion ways to make money online, right? I mean, you can make money in the metaverse, you can make money on YouTube, you can make money on Twitch, you can play video games and make money. And so, like, you go into this 18-month period, and I don't care, what you're passionate about, over 18 months, you can get pretty good at something, especially if you spend a large percentage of your time doing it, right? So, you got a lot of the workforce that sort of got to skip that I'm not skilled labor and I'm going to go in as an entry level. They got to become skilled at something. And so that propelled them forward into, their potential careers. And so that's a wonderful, sort of unintended consequence of what happened in COVID land, right? And so when that happens, again, you go back to, well, how do brands like ourselves, how does fast food, how does fast casual, how does casual dining continue to support that many, employees on a national scale? And so, it's the natural progression. Whether we like it or not, we are actually going to need robotics. We're going to actually need kiosks and self-serve things just to support the restaurants that we have. And it's going to be okay to the consumer. It's going to be okay. Look, airports are proving this, right? It's basically a self-service world in so many different landscapes. And I think the customer's okay with it for multiple reasons. Number one, I can use it as I choose. I can get good at it, right? And then it can be very convenient for me. And it's genuine in the sense that, you're sort of replacing somebody behind the counter, but you're really not, because that person has replaced you, right? And so they've gone out and they've gone and followed their passion. And so, our passion as restaurants, our passion is continuing to, deliver the best food we can deliver. And just where we are today is that some of that process will be automated. And it's okay. I mean, there'll come a time where you'll have less people in the restaurant, but those people are people who are more passionate towards the industry. Those are people who aspire. It's no longer, out of necessity, I have to get this food job. Now it's, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, I want to be in food. I want to be in restaurants. Okay, then go get a job in the restaurant space, right? Mm-hmm. So you're going to get a different level of passionate employee, and that's going to translate to consumers. But we're in an interesting sort of transition right now, so it's a little scary, but it's coming.
Jeffrey, I'm kind of interested to get your take on that too, because I know developing your people is so important. Investing in them and their having a positive mindset, I think, is really important for you guys with your team. Tell me about what that looks like for Ascent.
Absolutely, and part of our culture is to be contrarian, so I'm going to not necessarily disagree, but I understand for those that have scale and have hundreds of units, how you've got to recognize that this is where the world is going. I think for our culture and our restaurants being full service and more experiential is we try to tap into the opposite, that there are still people that want to be present for 90 minutes or present for 60 minutes. And what can we do in that 60 to 90 minutes that really creates something that's exceptional, that lead them to want to leave our restaurants and feel compelled to tell others, that social currency portion of it. Or that the experience is from a visual perspective or an interactive perspective, that they feel compelled to authentically take out their phones, take out their devices, and to capture that moment and share that moment and really be our ambassadors to the consumer. And so that begins and ends with the people that are within our four walls and how those individuals recognize it's their role to bring that experience forward. And so we do it in a manner of really trying to make the selection process, tapping into those that really want to be in the hospitality industry. We have something called 31 Lives, where we go to the high school level and we take an opportunity to meet with young high school students, and we provide them an opportunity to work within our restaurants. Career shifters maybe have gotten into Food Network, gone on TV, like to see all these quick instant moments of being able to create dishes, and maybe have an idea that they want to get in the restaurant industry. We still offer through our networking people that maybe just want to be career shifters and want an opportunity to see what it's like to work in a fine dining restaurant. We refer to those as RJPs, a realistic job preview, where they come in and they get a full 360-degree assessment by at least 4 different members of our team that evaluate whether or not they have the interest, the aptitude, the intensity that we might think that we want to take them under our wings and develop them. So it's from finding diamonds in the rough, it's finding folks early in their lives that want to be part of the industry and want that opportunity to crack into it. We've also created new layers within our organization. 7 or 8 years ago, when I was a chef and working in restaurants, you tend to have 1 or 2 layers of management. We have 4 or 5 striations now. The classical French culinary term of a commis, a junior chef. A lot of our restaurants now have junior chefs and junior managers, where they don't necessarily have the full-on responsibility, but they've shown something within their selves, their purpose, beyond just their passion. Their purpose is to be in our industry. We give them that early introduction to what it's like to take on responsibility and what it's like to be innovators in food and in cocktail development. So it really is no one silver bullet here. You really have to look at every dynamic aspect of your business and feel it out and apply energy and mentors in each one of those areas to bring that culture and bring that idea of there are still a lot of great things you could do in our industry, and we'll take you along the way as long as you're willing to commit the time and the energy.
That's really cool. Frank, you mentioned the incredible results that you've gotten already from having this focus on mental health. Tell me about where you go next. How do you continue to invest in your team, and how do you expect that will continue to pay dividends for the company?
So I think I agree and disagree as well with the technology. The one thing we know is we all had to use the technology and QR codes and all of that. What we found was we were leaving a lot of dollars on the table with QR codes and not having guest interactions. So I think there are a time and a place for it, even in some of our restaurants, but I think what we're trying to build is exactly like what you're saying. I mean, we're trying to build a career in hospitality and let people see that it is changed. After this, hopefully we all learned something about our employees, who we are, what guests want, and if we can build that trust back up in our employees to really make this a great job and a great career, I think we can do tremendous things. I mean, it's a big segment. I don't think, personally, that America really understood how many people worked in restaurants until the pandemic. I think it was kind of a joke that we were so kicked aside. Oh, it's unimportant, you're just a waiter. I think if we can really translate that back to, this is a great profession. I mean, I don't think any of us would be sitting up here today if we didn't think this was a great, fun industry that gives you the ability to take some time off, you can work a different schedule, and you can make it a career. And by the way, it does pay pretty damn well if you do well at it. And we've opted into a lot of what you're saying, like, yeah, there's assistant general managers, there's levels of servers, there's levels of cashiers. You want to be cashier 1 because you can make that raise. There's incentives to grow in the field, hi, go off and do something educational. We'll pay for your educational portion. If you want to go take a class on wine, we'll reimburse you for that. And we expect a certain amount of time, 6 months, that you'll work with us after you've passed this class. Like education, those are the kinds of things that we're investing in that I think people want. And if they see that in our industry, they will come back. And I believe that, you guys, it's all about the guests. If you can't get the guests to come back, it's very difficult to grow and really give you that. One of our values is experiential dining. So that's one of the things we try and instill into our staffs and think is super important to grow and to give a great experience.
Getting the guests to come back, good segue into Kieran and talking about loyalty. You mentioned at IHOP, loyalty program is a big part of your innovation recently. Tell me about how you do work to leverage marketing to get regular guests to come back, to keep coming back, and to get new guests to come trial.
Well, I'd like to respond to something that you said. I think there's nothing more human than being in the service industry. And the people that are willing to cook your food, serve your food, or in my previous life, clean your room or your toilets. I mean, that takes a really, really special person. And I totally agree with you. It's an incredible industry to be a part of, and I'm proud to say I've been a part of it for 22 years. But as far as reaching new and existing guests in different ways, one of the things that as part of our research that we invested in was understanding our customer segmentation. Again, so much has changed because of the pandemic, and we knew that we couldn't reach some of our existing guests the same way that we always had, and we knew that if we wanted to get more guests to come and try us out, we needed to meet them where they were in the channels that they're in. And so now we have segmentation that allows us to target individuals based on what decisions they make when they're hungry, where they like to get information from. So for example, if someone is more focused on quality and the ingredients that we use, that Instagram might be a better place for us to reach them. Whereas if someone's interested in new menu items like Minions, for example, TikTok is a great place. In fact, lots of people were reviewing our menu on TikTok when we launched Minions. So. But then now that we know all of those things, then we had to create an environment for that nimbleness to happen. So we've embedded a creative team into our marketing team. It's called the Creative Stack, as in stack of pancakes. And what they do is not only help us with all the different digital assets that we need, but they also are doing real-time content creation, response to what we're doing on our different channels. And I'll tell you, it keeps you on your toes. I mean, you have to be nimble. And I think that one thing that my team has done a great job of is we know what our strategy is, we know what our plan is, but we make sure that we can have a backup plan or maneuver if we need to, because if the guest changes their mind about something or they're into some other type of dining experience or food experience, we need to identify how that plays into IHOP and then pivot. And so that's, off-premise is a perfect example. We had to start thinking about how we could be more digitally enable that experience and offer them choice within our digital experience and things that were portable. And so those are some of the things that we're constantly evolving around.
Even beyond marketing, John, just across Applebee's and IHOP for innovation, similar to what we were talking about with Lindsay, how do you measure the success of innovation across these two brands? What does success, what kind of goals do you set for anything new and innovative that you're doing at the brands?
So probably no surprises there, right? The ultimate measure for us is traffic, right? And our campaigns, whether they're a tactical promotion, 10 shrimp for $1 with a steak, or if it's a more fun promotion with Top Gun, Maverick, is it driving traffic? And then we look at impressions, we look at the return on the investment and things like that. But what I think Applebee's does really well is it's a series of breakthrough events, right? And so if you go back for a year, last summer, Applebee's partnered with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Disney's Jungle Cruise, right? And so for every $25 you spent in the restaurant, you could earn a free ticket to the movie. Also turned out The Rock has his own tequila brand, so then Applebee's served his tequila brand, in a signature drink. We had, 9-foot cutouts of The Rock in the restaurants, and everybody had their picture with him. This year we did Top Gun. We had 5-foot cutouts of Tom Cruise. We're not no recording, right? And so, it's finding things like that make a difference, and connect to people in their lives in a meaningful way that's actually outside of Applebee's, right? And so I joke that Dine Brands, IHOP and Applebee collectively have this great skill in choosing blockbuster summer movies, because you've got to choose them years in advance, and it turns out, Minion and Top Gun this year were the #1 and #2 movies, but who knew when we signed up 3 years ago? And so for brands like IHOP and Applebee's that are, everyday brands in every neighborhood in the country, it's connecting in a very emotional way with people outside of their restaurant lives, which is why we love the movie connections. One other fun thing we did that's breakthrough is it turns out 6 weeks or so ago, National Wing Day, Chicken Wing Day, and National Lipstick Day fell on the same day. So of course Applebee's created wing-favored lip gloss, right? Which had why not, right? Which had billions of impressions on TikTok, lots of influencers, and again, it's Applebee's being relevant to an age group, right? In that case, where you might not expect Applebee's to be talking to. So they've taken, like Lindsay said, great risks, to push the brand beyond what somebody might expect, and collectively, I think that's why you see great movement in the brand.
And just to stay there for a bit, tell me about, TikTok. Of course, TikTok's taken over, and especially for younger generations. How are you guys using TikTok? How do you capture virality via TikTok? How does that even work?
What was the word? Virality?
Virality, right? Viral?
Virality, got it.
Virality. Yeah, right. You heard it first.
Part of it is you have to get lucky, and part of it is you have to be clever, right? So Fancy Like is a great example of something that went viral that we didn't see coming. The lip gloss is an example of us being more deliberate about it, right? And saying, it's very clever to have buffalo flavored lip gloss. We created a song. I wrote it down. I have a little bit of a cold, so I'm doped up on cold medicine and I can't remember anything, so I wrote it down, forgive me, because I always get it wrong. So the song is Taste My Face, which again is a little edgy.
How'd you forget that?
A little, maybe I want to forget that. So it's a little edgy, right? And it's purposely edgy. It's not what you'd expect from Applebee's, but it's relevant on TikTok and it's relevant to the TikTok population in a way that, we're not going to communicate that on our national television campaign, but it's perfect for TikTok.
Yeah. I think another example is, when we had the milkshake episode last year where Adam Sandler visited our IHOP, and on weekends you do have to wait, right? It's not, you can't just walk in. And he decided not to stay, and then the hostess realized that it was Adam Sandler. He had a mask on, and anyway, he started this whole thing around, he tweeted back and said, hey, I just wanted all you could drink milkshakes, and they didn't have them. And so we said, well, why can't we? And so we responded really quick. Another example is responding to, everybody was upset when the Choco Taco, went away. And this is an example similar to Wendy's. We had one of our franchisees say, hey, I want to make a Choco pancake. Can we do it and, give it away this day? And we're like, okay, let's try it out. I think what's great about this new world that we're all in is you can try things and you can win quickly or fail fast and move on. And I think that creates a spirit of empowerment and a little bit more risk-taking than I think we've ever seen, certainly in my career. And I think that it makes it okay to try some new things. Not everything's going to work, but I think it does give that spirit of entrepreneurism that maybe didn't exist as much until some of these things like TikTok really started taking off.
Yeah.
And by the way, best line of the panel so far, Lindsay, is make a friend and then invite him or her to lunch.
Yeah,
I
we like
love
that.
that.
That's a good one.
I'm going to start
Thanks,
using
John.
it, and a few months from now, I'll convince myself I thought of it myself. It's
I'll
really good.
remind him.
Co-authored. It
Again,
wasn't my
not
line
recorded.
originally either, so.
So related to that, trying new things, James, obviously trying new things in marketing is different from trying new things in operations because you have to make some big investments with operations. So tell me a little bit about the innovation process that you go through at Smoky Bones, how you know something is right to invest in, to try it out, how much trial and error do you have?
Well, one of our core values is called Be Creative, and it says, and we say, we are creators, we find new solutions to old problems. And that is ingrained all the way through the company at the restaurant level, and we actively encourage everyone to actually recognize people for coming up with new ideas that solve old problems, and sometimes solve problems maybe we didn't even know that we had. And so sometimes it's not about making big investments, operationally, it's about that spirit of it's okay to be wrong, it's okay to make a mistake, but if we're all trust each other and we all believe that we're trying to find solutions and we're trying to come up with new ideas, that we tolerate mistakes, we learn from them, we actually kind of celebrate it, even if we come up with something that's crazy and we tried and it didn't work, we're like, that's okay, we came up with something crazy, that's fine. And so if you're not thinking about innovating and constantly changing how you're going to market, I can guarantee you that you've got competitors who are doing that. And so you almost have to just live that culture of constantly solving, coming up with new solutions to old problems, and also just finding new ways to take care of your guests. So on the kind of hard investment case, ROI side, sure, we measure that, we make investments, we have business cases, but I think it runs a lot deeper than that. I think it has to be a part of who you are as a business, and from the restaurant level all the way down to the executive team.
That's great. As we wind down here, I just want to ask one last question of each panelist, something that I like to do now with sessions like this, which is just to get some practical ideas that you would suggest for our audience on what they can do next. Specifically, what are your suggestions for fostering a spirit of innovation at your company? Lindsay, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I really like what Kieran said just about for everyone that hits and is covered, there are several that don't. So just being willing to have that mindset that failure is okay. From a practical tip standpoint, I'd say three things. First, know your brand and your brand strategy and your purpose, especially if it's something like entering the metaverse. How do I attack TikTok versus Facebook? Because those platforms are very different. And then once that's set, let the creators create. We have an amazing group of people on our social and connections team at Wendy's and at our agencies. If it was me or any of our leadership team, we're not the creators. So just let those people have fun with it. It will feel uncomfortable. It will feel outside of, where you want to be. But that's when the good stuff happens. Because the creators, the third thing is have a fan-first mindset. So if you show up as a brand and you're trying to sell, you'll get sniffed out right away. So those creators, because they're intimately involved in usually these environments or these platforms, they're going to know what's going to make something go viral on TikTok versus a brand pushing something in. So that's the three things I would recommend the most.
I hate to break it to you, but you are literally a creator now. So
I know. I realized the double entendre of the word there throughout today.
I think let the creators
I like
create
the creative
is our new
stack,
tagline.
though. That's one of my takeaways.
Ashley, how about you? What are some practical tips?
Sure. I think all of us in this room are in different life cycles of their business, right? Some are giant and behemoth and can do lots of amazing, cool things. Some are in fine dining, and some are just getting started. And I think the relevant thing to everybody is create an innovation pipeline. Have some way for you guys to have discussions internally about innovation, and whether you do anything with it or you just throw a bunch of ideas up on a wall and then come back and revisit it on a quarterly basis, it'll just start to sort of move the train in the right direction and just start to help the thinking inside. And so whether you're a 1 unit, 2 unit, 10 unit, or 4,000 unit chain, if you keep coming back to it internally with your team, eventually something is going to happen, and eventually you're going to have something sort of rise to the top of where it becomes a priority. And then once it becomes a priority, you're sort of off to the races. Take it, run with it, don't be afraid to fail, like everyone said, and be really optimistic and hopefully succeed in one, and one will turn into 2 successes and so forth. So,
Jeffrey, how about you?
Yeah, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. We're all in different places. For us, my advice to all of you, if you are smaller, is the future leaders and the creators are within your organizations today, and they may not be in the seat of leader or creator, but if you dig deep enough and you pay attention enough and you reach into the hearts and minds of those that are in your operations today, they can become your future leaders, your future creators, your future innovators. So if you create this culture of that anything is possible and anyone within the organization could create greatness and excellence, the world is your oyster. You'll be able to do a lot of great things.
Frank?
Yeah, I'll piggyback that with just a quick story. At one of our restaurants, we, pre-pandemic, did not do any to-go food, nothing. I personally would have laughed at you on a Wednesday night if you asked for one of our homemade pastas that we hand roll every day to go. We had a group that worked there that during the pandemic said, you know, we're going to open and we're going to do to-go food. It single-handedly turned that restaurant around. They do more to-go food on some nights than they do dine-in, and they are a very small store, and it was their innovation and us believing in them that they could do it. They picked and chose the menu items. They believed in it. We believed in them. We couldn't really go see them during the pandemic because we didn't want to take any chance we were going to cross-pollinate and get someone sick. And those three people moved on and helped turn this restaurant literally into one of our most profitable restaurants. And that chef that had that idea is now our director of operations 2 years later. So I think you're right. They're in your group, and you just have to cultivate and find them and believe in them and throw stupid ideas at the wall. And if I could build a drive-through, I might consider that right now.
Karen, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the best thing is to have a clear strategy and making sure that your teams understand the why. The why is so important because then I think that actually inspires some creativity and allows them to be empowered to do some things, fail fast. And I think that's really key. Have a plan, have success measures, and be nimble and adapt when you learn something's not working. Okay, let's back off of that, but this is working really good. Keep going forward. So having that plan is really, really key to being nimble and empowering the team to do new things and take on, the Choco pancake in a moment's notice.
John, what do you think?
Yeah, all of this plus, do a postmortem. Whether your new program is wildly successful or fails or in between, it sends a message to your team culturally that you want to understand why things went well or didn't. And particularly when things don't go well, it's all about lessons learned and no one's getting in trouble, and that sends the message that it's safe to take risks.
James, final word?
Yeah, I would say look around your organization, actively seek out the things that people say we can't do, and ask yourself, well, what would happen if we did those things?
That's great. Let's give these panelists a big round of applause. Guys, thank you so much for your input. Appreciate that.